Hi everyone, it's Lindsay with High Altitude Astrology, and today I'm going to be doing another chart reading. It's going to be of Mr. Rogers. If you've never seen his show, he had a show called It's a Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, and he currently has a movie out about his life. He's passed on, but it's an incredible movie if you have an opportunity to see it. It shows what a compassionate and loving person Mr. Rogers was. Fred McFeely Rogers is his name. And it's just such a stunning movie, actually, of this person's life and who they were and why they felt they existed. So if you want to follow along, let me give you his birth information. It's March 20th, 1928. He was born at 8:20 a.m. in Latrobe, Pennsylvania. And boy, does his chart really speak to who he was. He was a 29-degree Pisces sun. And there's something called, that is called the anorectic degree. When when a planet is in the last degree of a sign. I wanted to read something from Llewellyn.com that describes the anorectic degree. It says, a name given to the 29th degree of any sign. It is sometimes called the degree of fate. When a planet is in an anorectic degree of a sign, especially the water signs, which of course Pisces is, spiritual qualities, including intuition, intuitiveness, psychic abilities, and empathy, are associated with the planet, and the sign is therefore enhanced. And he has such an interesting story. I mean, if you saw his show, you can see he's an extremely compassionate person. But he has an interesting life story. He grew up really like as an overweight youth. Not extremely, but it was enough that he, I believe, got comments, or it was difficult for him. And he felt bullied. And so that experience is what carried over into his adult life and made him want to work to basically help children feel loved. And that's what his show was all about. He went to school for music. He has a bachelor's in music, so he was an accomplished musician. And he also swam every single morning. I mean, a Pisces fish, that's it right there. And he had this really special thing. Well, I don't want to ruin it. You can see the movie. But he had a reason why he wanted to always be a certain weight in his life. Now, hopefully it wasn't scarring from being bullied as a kid, but he has a symbolic meaning for the weight that he preferred to be at in his life. He also went to seminary school, and he trained as an ordained minister. Basically, after that, he decided that he wanted to go into television. And the reason he wanted to do it was because he didn't think that there was good programming for kids. He wasn't satisfied with what was being broadcast. And this was why he felt compelled to want to create this television show. Now, of course, there's some other reasons too in his chart, but that's just his sun and Pisces nature and all of the things that I just described that relate to it. He also is a sun conjunct Uranus individual. So again, the sun's at 29 degrees of Pisces, but his Uranus is at 3 degrees of Aquarius. So it's an out of sign conjunction of his Uranus is at 3 degrees of Aries. And so it's an out of sign conjunction of about 4 degrees. But if we think of Uranus, that is the progressive energy. That's somebody who sees the future in a way and wants to incorporate what they do through their creative expression, through their solar nature, with this Uranian, forward-thinking, progressive energy. And he certainly was. In his television show, you can see that he he pushes the boundaries of issues, especially when the show was being made. I think it was in the 70s, perhaps 60s. He would have African American people on the show, and he would invite, like, one guy was the mailman, the African American mailman, and that guy would come by, and Mr. Rogers would be with his feet in the pool because he was cooling off, and he'd invite the mailman to sit down with him and cool his feet. And it was a direct message to people who had these beliefs about segregation, because that was a big topic still in the 60s and 70s. And people didn't want African American people swimming in public pools and things like that. So he really took a very progressive message through the content of his show. He also is a Pisces moon person, which just doubles his sympathy, his empathy, his compassion. His moon is at 11 degrees of Pisces. So again, just extremely compassionate person. He has his Mercury conjunct his Venus at 2 degrees of Pisces as well. So a lot of Pisces energy in his chart. But when we think of Mercury conjunct Venus, this is the energy of communication and getting messages across, sharing information, conjuncting the sign of creativity and the sign of beauty and the sign of expressing ourselves through our creative process. So he was a composer, he was a writer, he wrote those shows with other people. So to me, that conjunction between his Mercury and Venus definitely speaks to more of his creative expression as well. I also want to go back to his sun again, because he has his sun in conjunct Neptune in his chart. Again, sun at 29 degrees of Pisces, Neptune at 26 degrees of Leo. And I wanted to read something about having the sun in conjunct Neptune from Dark Star Astrology. It says people are prone more than most to dissolving. They have great difficulty holding on to their ego. The boundaries between themselves and others are blurry, and they absorb the collective unconscious like a sponge. They long to merge with the Great Spirit and feel that euphoria of oneness once again. So again, this is his wanting to go into the seminary school, and this is his love of music and composing. And he even talks about it in the movie as well, how music can just take us to so many different places in the imagination. And also how music really helped him to get out his feelings, because he was told, I believe, as a younger person, to not really feel, his negative feelings. And so he felt that music was a place to really channel those feelings for himself and process what he, wasn't able to express out into the world. He also has an interesting square between Jupiter and Aries at 12 degrees and Pluto in Cancer at 15 degrees. Now, Jupiter in Aries, this is like an urgency to get our perspective out there and to expand not only our world, but the world around us, to expand other people's perspectives. And Pluto, of course, is this deep transformative energy and wanting to, create change through the process of transformation. So this is somebody who definitely can harness a lot of power. Pluto also is symbolic of our power and being able to focus and hone our power. And with Jupiter, that's, again, expansion and growth. So a lot of times people with Jupiter and Pluto in relationship to one another in a chart really are destined for great things and big things. And this is a reading from the Astrologer's Handbook by Francis Sakoian and Louis Acker. And they write that this square indicates the people who have it to dogmatism in religion and philosophy, combined with a rebellion against their contemporary forms. They would like to remake institutions or reform ideas in the realm of religion and education. And of course, you know, this was what he did. He brought a new way of trying to relate to kids and to make them feel that they were good. And it's also, again, his perspective on things like, you know, things like racism and things like that he was trying to address through his show. And just a few more things about his natal chart. He has his Mars in Aquarius. Of course, this is the sign that Mars is getting ready to retrograde in. And this is somebody, again, who's it's a symbol of being very progressive. They want to assert themselves in a very progressive way, in a very unique way, in a way that considers all of humanity. And his Mars at 16 of Aquarius sextiles his Saturn at 19 degrees of Sagittarius. It also sextiles his Jupiter back at 12 degrees of Aries. So there's just a lot of energy here for him to really assert himself with that desire to expand other people's perspective. And then, of course, with Saturn sextiling the Mars, just the ability to really, you know, work hard at what he's trying to do. And again, Saturn in Sag working again at trying to expand perspective, because Sag is ruled by Jupiter and has those qualities as well. He also has his Saturn at 19 degrees Sagittarius trining widely his Neptune at 26 degrees of Leo. And again, Saturn trine Neptune, you know, this is like creating foundation, working, building structure, but blending with the energy of compassion and transcendence and wanting to bring this energy of compassion and kindness into his work. And to share that energy with others and to teach people about that too, because again, Saturn can be the teacher. And Neptune, again, is that loving, compassionate energy. Now, I wanted to look at why this movie is coming out right now, because of course he's passed on, but there's a reason that his movie is coming out right now. And one of the things is I see with Mars retrograding in Aquarius, this movie and who he is and how he's portrayed in this movie really has a significant connection, I think, to the Mars retrograde in Aquarius, because as I have been feeling about the Mars retrograde in Aquarius, it's going to help all of us reflect on how we assert ourselves in relationship to humanity, and how can we hone that self-assertive skill so that we're including everyone, and we're not isolating people or putting people down. You know, Aquarius is all about recognizing everybody's individuality and doing things, asserting ourselves in ways that incorporates the group. Now, what's interesting about him right now is that transiting Chiron, which has been moving through Pisces, even though now it's in Aries, it's still going to retrograde back into late Pisces for a little bit, has been conjuncting his Sun at 29 degrees of Pisces. And of course, Chiron in Pisces is the wounded healer. And this energy right now is going back and forth across his Sun. And to me, this is so symbolic, because he is that wounded healer who is shining his light out into the world right now through this movie, you know, and he is saying, we have to love each other. I mean, that is really the whole message of the movie, is to love yourself. And in loving yourself, you're more capable of loving other people. It's such a profound movie. Please go see it if you're at all inclined. I mean, it's just, I was bawling. Anyway, the other thing that's going on in his chart is that transiting Neptune is trining his Pluto. And remember that Pluto is square Jupiter in his chart. So it's setting off that that Neptunian energy of compassion and loving one another is setting off that part of his chart that, you know, has a desire to transform the status quo and transform the way, you know, people see things and look at things. And then also transiting Jupiter has been trining that Pluto too, because Jupiter has been in Scorpio. It's retrograding right now, and it's been going back and forth trining that Pluto in Cancer as well. It's the energy of expanding perspective, Jupiter, which is trining his Pluto, the energy of deep transformation, which of course in his natal chart then squares his own natal Jupiter. So I see that this transiting Jupiter in Scorpio, it's like he's saying to us from the other side, he's helping us transform Jupiter in Scorpio, our own perspectives around, you know, relating to others, and, you know, making sure that the message that he had in his lifetime was is still being heard. I just think it's amazing that that this movie's coming out right now with all of these different symbolisms happening in his personal chart. So this has been my interpretation of Mr. Rogers' chart, and thank you so much for listening. If you like my channel, please subscribe. I also have a website, sabeautifuldayintheneighborhood.com, and you can sign up to receive my daily blog where I write about the transits of the planets and what you can expect out of the energies of the day. And of course, you can always reach me if you have any questions at info@highaltitudeastrology.com. I really appreciate all your support. Take care. Adios.